The Osmo price is absolutely destroyed right now and went almost below a single dollar. And if this wasn't enough already, the blockchain is currently halted as there was a bug in the liquidity pools that got exploited for roughly 5 million US dollars. Is this the end for Osmo, or is this the best time to get in? Now, Osmo is currently trading at $1.36, up 15% today. However, that is a bit deformed, and there was also this giant pump to $1.92 just now. But that is just liquidity that is now traded on centralized exchanges like Maxi and BitGet. Personally, I'm not a big fan of centralized exchanges, and I would stay away, especially right now as the Osmosis chain is currently halted, right? The Osmosis chain, the Osmosis DEX, IBC transfers are currently not functional, right? Because the chain is down. So be very careful with this thin liquidity on centralized exchanges. However, we see there's at least some volume in the six figures that is trading Osmo at currently $1.60, even though the chain is down right now. And I would assume that there's a dump happening right now, or the dump might come when the chain goes live. But we'll talk a little bit about my thoughts on the price movement of Osmo in a second. However, this is where we currently are right now. This gives Osmo a market cap of 516 million US dollars based on the 390 million Osmo coins that are in circulation, and a fully diluted of 1.3 billion US dollars based on the max supply, which is reached after a couple of years. And we'll get also into some of the tokenomics in a second. As of right now, Osmo has a TVL of 213 million US dollars. If we zoom out on Max here on the chart, we can see that this pump of today is just gone because Osmo was trading at an all-time high of $11.25 just a few months ago, right? So early March, we were at all-time highs, and that is only 3 months ago. Since then, the price was absolutely destroyed. Also because a lot of the liquidity of Osmo was pegged against UST and Luna. So liquidity on Osmosis was also affected from the Terra collapse, not the uptime or performance of the chain. This is very, very important to understand the difference. But liquidity, of course, was affected, but the fundamentals of Osmo were not affected by this. However, we do have some wild turning in events recently because the Osmosis chain is currently down and there was a bug that was exploited, and I'm going to give you a bit of context what happened. It started on June 8 in the morning, which is block number 4713064, on which the Osmosis chain halted for an emergency maintenance. Since then, the Osmosis DEX and wallet are inoperable, so you can't use them. Well, there was obviously immediately the fear that the entire liquidity of Osmosis, which would have been 200 plus million US dollars, were drained. And luckily, this was not the case. So likely this came out really, really quickly within the range of 5 million US dollars, which is just 2.5% of the TVL on Osmosis, were drained. And of course, I'm not downplaying this. This is a lot of money and users were affected. This should have been prevented. And it also seems that this was a rather easy bug that could have been detected earlier if the platform and the DEX was just tested better. I've not personally checked my funds yet and seen and did the math on how much I've lost on this, but I'm pretty sure that my liquidity is also affected. However, I kept repeating over in my videos that only a smaller percentage of my investments is in liquidity pools because there is more risk than just natively staking on chain. I think I always maintain a 70-30 or even 80-20 ratio between staking natively on chain and throwing money into liquidity pools. Liquidity pools are always more dangerous, not just because of the impermanent loss, but also because there's just more friction in it, right? And bugs like this can happen. Now, the bug was identified and the patch was written the same day of the attack. And then they also came out later in that day to give an update that it was actually 4 individuals that have been identified, which account for 95+% of the realized exploit amount. 2 out of these 4 individuals have proactively expressed their intent to return the amount in full, right? So apparently around, I guess that's like $2-3 million are voluntarily being returned by the attackers. which probably also because they're scared of facing legal consequences. It's wiser to actually return the funds, because one of the cool things about blockchain is that you can trace down transactions, especially if they're linked to centralized exchanges, right? And in this tweet, it goes also further. The two remaining individuals have transactions from centralized exchanges. So these exchanges have been contacted, number one, to reveal information, because this is a crime after all, to drain liquidity. And I'm going to explain you in a second what actually happened. Plus, they also informed law enforcement. So the police, I don't know if this is a bluff or if this actually happened, but yeah, we'll see. So this is the immediate actions taken by the Osmosis core development team. And they also came out and said that this is fully on them. They should have prevented this. So what actually happened? What happened is that there was a bug that somebody could add liquidity and then withdraw 50% more liquidity than he added, which then created this endless loophole that people did and just added and withdrew liquidity and drained liquidity shares out of these pools. Fully aware if they already announced which pools are affected. I think probably pool number one, Atom Osmo. Now on June 9, they then came out and said that the software error that led to the chain halt was introduced in the latest Osmo v9.0 update that went live yesterday. So there was actually also a very small time window actually when this attack could have been executed and been exploited. Then they said all losses will be covered. It's actually a combination of recovering the funds from the funds that are returned from the attackers, plus making Osmonauts full by taking funds from the developer treasury, right? Very, very important. They're taking their own funds from the development community, which is totally adequate, I think, and not from the community pool. This is very, very important and a great move, I think, from the core development team at Osmosis. After all, I think the quick reaction and quick co-effort of all validators to come together and to halt the chain for an emergency upgrade is also very cool to see how active this community is, how much they care, and how much and quickly they are to prevent further damages, to potentially drain a lot more liquidity than the 2.53% that was drained, which is already too much. Every single dollar that is being drained through a bug is already a loss. Now, an extremely interesting turn of events also came out actually on the day of the attack, was when Firestake, a validator, came out, said that in disbelief of if it had been real, 2 members of the Firestake team started to see if the bug existed. Testing grew into a temporary lapse in a good judgment, and in the process, we managed to convert $226 to 2 million. So they just drained liquidity pools, liquidity shares from the community, and just looped this whole process over and over again with a thought in mind about their family's future and not the future of the community. They came out, however, themselves without, being pushed by Sunny or by the Osmosis core development team. However, this is extremely wild to see these things happening. I don't want to comment too much on this. I think there's also a lot of drama around it, like the morals and ethics. And of course, now they actually came out and said, we're going to withdraw all our validators and all our nodes from all Cosmos chains. This is it for us. So yeah, I'll leave you guys with this information. So the bottom line is the bug is fixed. The chain is supposedly going to go live within the next 1 or 2 days, I guess. And I think they also have to be quick before the IBC channels start to expire, because I think it's 14 days, if I'm not mistaken, before the IBC channels expire. And then it would have to require on-chain governance again to reactivate these channels, which takes a lot of time then. So this is the first thing. Bug is fixed. Chain is going to go live very, very soon. Second thing, Osmosis LPs, if they lost and were affected from this bug exploit, will be made whole and recovered in full. Now, do I think that Osmo is going to survive this attack, come back stronger, or is this going to be the end for Osmosis? And my simple answer is, I think that Osmo is here to stay. The development team is extremely committed to make Osmosis not just a DEX, but an entire DeFi hub for the Cosmos economy, for the Cosmos ecosystem. And I think they are extremely capable of shipping that. I think this was an exploit and a bug that should have been prevented. However, these things happen in an extremely experimental industry that we're in. I keep repeating this. This is extremely early stage, very experimental. there is lessons learned along the way as we're building this internet of blockchains, this Web3 economy. High risk, high reward. At the same time, this means that there is high upside potential for innovative products. And in my opinion, Osmosis is an innovative product that has strong product market fit, that has an active user base, and growing and exponentially growing adoption. One of the major applications that is now shifting over to Osmosis and being deployed on Osmo, which is a DeFi protocol, a lending protocol, so it's enables you to borrow and lend assets on top of Osmosis, is going to be Mars protocol. And Mars has been one of the most hyped and highly anticipated projects on Terra. Well, since Terra doesn't exist in that form anymore, Mars is now migrating onto Osmosis, and then from there, eventually, they will also launch their own chain. However, this is extremely bullish for Osmosis. Besides that, a bunch of other protocols have expressed interest to potentially migrate onto Osmosis. Also, there might be a potential NFT ecosystem being built on Osmosis. So I have not looked too deeply into this, but this looks also very cool and interesting and very attractive. So I think Osmosis is going to expand from just being an AMM or a DEX where you can provide liquidity, yield farm, trade, and swap. It's going to evolve more into a more professional DeFi platform where you can also lend and borrow assets, where you can potentially also margin trade. I think those things have been in discussion, and also where you have an entire ecosystem that you can build applications on top of, right? Osmosis is Cosmos enabled, and you will see more and more applications being built on top of Osmosis. Let's look into some of the stats here on mintscan.io. Osmosis has a staking APY. I don't know if that's APY or APR actually, because APY is supposed to be compounded and APR is just a static yield that you get per year. It's currently at 53%. Staking APRs, however, are going to go down on June 20th by a third. So I think these staking rewards are going to go down to the 30s, 30%, something like this, because the Osmo thirdening is going to take place on June 20th. So stay tuned for that. Keep that in mind. What does it mean? It means that the emission of new Osmo that are being minted through inflation decreases by a third, which also means the staking rewards go down by a third, because staking rewards eventually are inflation, right? So if you earn high yields, you're actually earning for providing security to the chain through inflation. That's very important to understand, which also means potentially less sell pressure on the open market for the Osmo coin. And if there's strong products coming out that will have massive utility for Osmo, besides providing liquidity, besides using it for security or governance, this could propel Osmo to newer highs, right? I'm not talking about all-time highs yet, but at least to say that we've potentially bottomed out. Now, does that mean that I'm extremely bullish right now on Osmosis? Short term, I would say I'm still slightly bearish, because we are in this weird market sentiment right now. We don't really know where everything is going to head. Bitcoin, everybody's just waiting for Bitcoin to go down to 20K, Ethereum to go down to 1200, 1100 for this last nasty dump and this stitch that everybody's like already kind of expecting. However, on the flip side, if everybody's expecting it, sometimes the exact opposite is just taking place. So I don't know if we're going to see this final dump. It's more likely, however, if you look at the chart, and there's currently not like zero positive narratives out there that could lead to a Bitcoin pump and lift all markets in crypto. So Osmo below $1 short term, I think, is likely, might happen, but I think mid-long term Osmo will reach new all-time highs. It's definitely here to stay, and I think it's probably one of the most asymmetric bets right now in crypto. Let me know what you think. Keep in mind that none of what I say is any sort of financial advice. Everything could crash in an instant like this. Crypto is very experimental, early stage technology. Osmosis is a laboratory where literally people are coming to experiment. And I think that's also what you have to be aware of. Never invest money that you need. Never invest money that you're not willing to lose, that you need to pay for your bills in real life. Only invest that you can afford to lose. And I hope you stick to that golden rule. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe and be good.